A major breakthrough in hostage for ceasefire negotiations has reportedly been reached today. 98 hostages remain in captivity held by Hamas in Gaza for 465 days. Now, as of this broadcast, all sides are awaiting a response to the deal from Hamas. ILTV's Ariella Lachiani is at Hostages Square in Tel Aviv. Ariella, what's the latest?
Yes, thank you, Ladar. So Israeli officials have confirmed a significant breakthrough in hostage ceasefire negotiations as a draft proposal is just awaiting Hamas's approval. Now, the deal would be based on a three-stage framework, beginning with the release of humanitarian cases, which would include women, children, the sick and the elderly, followed by discussions on military-aged men and also Gaza's governance. Now, mediators from the US, Qatar and Egypt have made notable progress, with Qatar increasing pressure on Hamas to accept a deal, and also simultaneously US Envoy Steve Witkoff pushing Israel to finalize its position. Now, despite these positive developments, key sticking points do remain, such as the withdrawal of Israeli forces and also the release of Palestinian prisoners. And whilst an Egyptian official has expressed optimism, several officials have also cautioned that days may be needed to wrap this deal up. Now, whilst there is currently no indication as to when we can receive an answer, it could be a matter of days, it could be a matter of just hours, the focus does remain on securing a deal before US President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration on January 20th. But let's take a look at some of the details that led to these developments. Efforts to secure a hostage ceasefire agreement in Doha have reportedly reached a breakthrough, with mediators from Qatar, the US and Egypt playing pivotal roles in advancing the talks. The framework under discussion involves three stages: releasing humanitarian cases first, women, children, the infirm and older men, followed by talks on military-aged men and Gaza's governance and reconstruction. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and US President Joe Biden held a critical phone call to discuss the negotiations. Netanyahu updated Biden on efforts led by Mossad Chief David Barnea, Shin Bet head Ronen Bar, and IDF Major General Nitzan Alon. Biden emphasized the importance of swift action to bring humanitarian relief to Gaza and establish a lasting ceasefire. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan has also stressed that resolving this crisis is a top priority. The discussions build on previous frameworks and reflect months of diplomatic effort. Despite the complex dynamics, the involvement of Gulf and Egyptian mediators highlights the global focus on resolving the situation. While specific developments in the deal have yet to be disclosed, the high-level engagement underscores the urgency and commitment and appears to have finally led to a potential agreement.
Ariella, thank you for the report. You know, you're at Hostages Square. What's the atmosphere like there now? How are the families as they await the response from Hamas?
It's a complicated question. This does offer a glimmer of hope, and of course it provides a sense of optimism. But at the end of the day, we are dealing with terrorists. So how much faith can you have in the word of a terrorist organization? It's a question that doesn't really need answering. And unfortunately, we have been close to deals in the past that have crumbled at the last minute. So cautious optimism is the way I would describe it. And then again, this does appear to be the closest we have been to a deal in a very, very long time. So yes, it could signal a slight sigh of relief, but I think cautious optimism would be how I would describe the atmosphere at the moment.
Thank you, Ariella, and let's hope we'll have some good news to report on soon. And meanwhile, cracks have appeared in the fragile 60-day ceasefire with Lebanon, only 2 weeks before the truce is due to expire. The Air Force launched strikes on a series of Hezbollah targets after complaints to U.S. ceasefire monitors went unanswered. The Air Force also dealt with the latest drone attack from Yemen. More from ILTV's Steve Leibovitz.
The IDF downed a drone over southern Israel this morning that was launched by the Houthis in Yemen. The drone was destroyed by a helicopter near the southern community of Gvulot. No sirens were sounded in other locations. Turning to Lebanon, where the IDF says it struck a series of Hezbollah sites after the ceasefire mechanism failed to address threats. The Air Force hit sites in several locations in Lebanon, including rocket launchers and arms routes along the Syria-Lebanon border, used to smuggle weapons to Hezbollah. The Army says that before the strikes, it made the threats known to the U.S.-led international mechanism set up as part of the ongoing ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon. The Army said it will continue to act to remove any threat and will operate to prevent Hezbollah to rebuild its forces in accordance with the ceasefire understandings. According to the Lebanese media, Israeli aircraft targeted Bekaa Valley near the border with Syria. There were also reported strikes in Nabatea, 17 kilometers north of the border and north of the Litani River. There's been no cross-border rocket fire from Hezbollah, but there has been another fatality from the war. 75-year-old Tamar Edrei was critically wounded when a Hezbollah rocket struck her home in late November, just a day before the start of the ceasefire. Edrei has now succumbed to her wounds. The attack damaged 54 apartments in the city.
With just 1 week until the inauguration of U.S. President Donald Trump, we're seeing renewed and intensified efforts to secure hostage and ceasefire deals in both Gaza and Lebanon. Joining us now, Professor Benny Miller from Haifa University, an expert in international relations and national security. And that's exactly what we need right now to break it down for us. Professor Miller, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for hosting me.
So, by all reports, the elusive U.S., Qatar, Egypt mediated ceasefire agreement appears closer than ever. A draft of the agreement has been given to Israel and to Hamas. Is it too soon to speculate that an agreement is at hand?
We definitely have a very awful experience with previous attempts. That there were high expectations of a deal and liberation of the hostages, which is the most important thing that one can imagine. And we were disappointed numerous times, especially obviously the families of the hostages, and I think the overwhelming majority of the Israeli public as well. So because of that experience, we have to be very cautious and very patient, but it looks like this time it's more serious than before. Why? Probably, either from the Israeli kind of military objectives in Gaza, it looks like they were basically fulfilled, and it's a good timing to end the war, or at the very least for a ceasefire. Secondly, if terrorist action by Hamas happens in the future, Israel can always return to Gaza and hit Hamas targets. But on the whole, the timing seems to be closely related to your opening statement about the inauguration of the president-elect Donald Trump, because what Trump wants, he wants very much the hostages will be released, will be liberated by the inauguration day. And also, it looks like he's very much interested in ending the war. In general, globally speaking, he's interested in ending wars. Also in Ukraine, for example, but definitely also the post-October 7th wars in which Israel is engaged since this awful attack of Hamas on October 7th of last year.
Of course, we've heard Trump say that all hell will break loose if the hostages are not released. Now, according to the reports of the draft, only some 34 Israeli hostages would be released in a first stage, but there is no clear path, at least from what we know, for the release of all the hostages and the end of the war in this deal. Is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, right now, probably we're talking about the first stage of a ceasefire and the release of this, limited or relatively a limited number of hostages. But I think if Trump insists with this idea that the hostages have to be freed and also that the war should end and at the very least an extended ceasefire, I think there will be a second stage. Because also the mediators, Qatar and Egypt, not only Netanyahu, are very much worried about Trump. Trump is a bit, as we know, unpredictable, and both Qatar and Egypt have a very high security dependence on the United States, and they are really worried that Trump might penalize them if they don't exert heavy enough pressure on Hamas. So I think, at least for this reason, it's good that Trump is becoming the American president, because I think now the chances of the liberation of the hostages is much greater than it was under Biden, because of the political reasons that we mentioned.
I want to also turn to Lebanon. There we have a 60-day ceasefire agreement that's due to expire on January 26th. The Israeli Air Force is pounding Hezbollah positions and saying the international monitors are not implementing the agreement. On the other hand, the United States is saying that all is on course for a full Israeli pullback to the blue line. Is there a U.S.-Israel disconnect on this issue?
Yeah, definitely the United States is very much interested, but I think that will be consistent from Biden to Trump as well. That there will be, the ceasefire will be extended. There will be, rebuilding of Lebanon, which is quite destroyed after the war. And there is a strong interest in the United States about the continuation of the ceasefire. Israel, on the other hand, after the awful experience of October 7th, is very worried that Hezbollah, through all kind of means, will infiltrate back to the South Lebanon area near the border. For example, villagers that will supposedly come and again to live in their villages near the border, but in effect, a lot of them might be operatives of Hezbollah. So, so in this sense, definitely there is some distance between the United States and Israel, and they will have to find, a shared formula how, on the one hand, to guarantee that Hezbollah will reach again South Lebanon and the border area, but at the same time to continue ceasefire. So it will be a delicate balance between Israel and the United States.
Professor Benny Miller, thank you so much for your analysis today on all these very important issues.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And Dr. Mike Evans, the Friends of Zion Museum and ILTV News are excited to invite you, our viewers, to a special celebratory evening honoring President Donald Trump. The event, which the president himself is aware of and plans to watch following his inauguration, promises to be an unforgettable evening. Join us on Inauguration Day, January 20th, at the Friends of Zion Museum for a night to remember, featuring a free Solomon Brothers concert, delicious American-style cuisine, and a captivating panel discussion and interviews with top ministers. If you're in the country and would like to RSVP, simply scan the QR code to secure your spot. And moving on, the Islamic Republic of Iran is bracing for the return of the Trump administration and a potential Israeli strike against its nuclear facilities, with a series of military exercises and new military capabilities. The details in the following report. The Islamic Republic of Iran's army has received 1,000 new drones, its state-run news agency reported on Monday. This as it braces for the return of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump on January 20th and for a potential Israeli strike on its nuclear reactors. According to the Tasnim news agency, the drones were delivered to various locations throughout Iran and are said to have high stealth and anti-fortification abilities. Additionally, they reportedly include a range of over 2,000 kilometers and the ability to pass through defense layers with a low radar. The news agency also revealed that the drones were manufactured within Iran by the Iranian military, scientists, and what they called innovators. The delivery of the drones comes after the regime held air defense exercises over the weekend, part of 2 months-long exercises launched January 4th, which consist of war games and simulations against mock attacks by missiles and drones. Iranian state media reported drills so far have included the defense of key nuclear sites in Natanz. The war games take place as Iranian leaders face the risk that Trump could empower Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to attack Iran's nuclear sites while further tightening U.S. sanctions on its oil industry through its maximum pressure policy. Last October, Israel struck the regime's defense capabilities as well as missile and drone production sites, which experts say significantly hindered the regime's defensive and offensive capabilities. Tehran has sought to downplay the attack, saying it only caused limited damage. As such, this week, the Iranian media broadcast footage of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps commander inspecting a secret underground missile facility. Yet despite the strong rhetoric, Iran has suffered a series of setbacks, from the defeat of its terror proxies in Gaza and in Lebanon to the fall of its strategic ally Bashar al-Assad in Syria, significantly weakening its influence in the Middle East. Now, with the return of Trump, the threat of crippling sanctions, internal unrest, and a potential Israeli strike on the horizon, could its next setback be the last? The Iranian regime is clearly worried. And meanwhile, the multi-front war continues. It's day 465 of the war in Gaza, with ongoing clashes reported in Beit Hanun. And amid anti-terror crackdown in Judea and Samaria, the IDF and police force foiled an imminent terror attack before it was launched. More from ILTV's Steve Leibovitz.
Potential catastrophe was averted when a two-man terror cell was stopped on its way to attack. The terrorists from the town of Kabatia were arrested in the joint operation. The heavily armed cell was intercepted as it was on its way to carry out an attack. The cell was identified as 21-year-old Ahmed Zakharna and Tariq Abu Zaid, both affiliated with Islamic Jihad. They were arrested in a car carrying automatic weapons, vests, face masks, and a great deal of ammunition. In ongoing anti-terror operations, the IDF arrested at least 25 wanted men. The uptick in raids was triggered by last week's terror attack that killed 3 Israelis and injured 7 others near Kadumim. The killers remain at large. The arrests were in a series of towns, including Kabatia, Burqa, and Nablus. It was day 465 in the war in Gaza. Clashes continue to intensify, with the current focus in Beit Hanun in the north. The local population was evacuated, leaving only remaining Hamas terrorists. The IDF is continuing its mission to destroy structures closest to the border with Israel. The goal is to allow the safe resumption of train travel to Sderot without the threat of anti-tank missile fire. Troops found dozens of explosive devices like those that caused heavy casualties to troops in recent days. South of Beit Hanun in Jabalia, the IDF is continuing its operation, often clashing with terrorist cells at close range. The IDF says that if negotiations for a ceasefire and hostage exchange fail, the army is already planning for its next offensive.
And in diplomatic news, Foreign Minister Gideon Saar hosted Danish Foreign Minister Lars Rasmussen at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Jerusalem today. The two leaders first engaged in an extended private meeting, followed by discussions with their respective teams, and concluded with a joint press conference. ILTV's Mayan Hoffman was on the ground at the media event. Mayan, over to you.
Well, thank you, Lidar. I'm standing here right outside the Foreign Ministry in Jerusalem, where we just completed a press conference with Foreign Minister Gideon Saar and the Danish Foreign Minister, who is in the country on a solidarity mission and a strategic mission to discuss future plans with Israel. Of course, they talked about security concerns and the ability to work together economically and on areas of innovation. But there was one point of contention during the discussion, and that, of course, came down around UNRWA. The Danish government supports UNRWA at around $75 million per year. UNRWA is slated to cease operations in Gaza, the West Bank, and Jerusalem effectively at the end of this month. Gideon Saar mentioned that he believed that there would be other NGOs and foreign actors that would be able to step in and support the Palestinian civilians, but the Danish foreign minister felt otherwise and said that he did not see a replacement at the current time. He also stressed the need for a two-state solution, something that at the current stage, the Israeli parliament has said will absolutely not happen.
All right, thank you, Mayan, for the report.
Moving to Israel marks the beginning of a new chapter, and Pitaro Hecht helps you make it truly yours. Transform your home with interiors that blend style, comfort, and timeless design, from luxurious living spaces to thoughtful details. With high-quality craftsmanship at great value, we create spaces where memories are made. For your new life in Israel, choose Pitaro Hecht, where your home begins. And a Christian mother of 6 and activist, Reverend Haley Ace,
has traveled to Israel despite threats from Hamas and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, boldly declaring if Israel fails, the West will fail. ILTV's executive editor Maayan Hoffman met with Ace last week in Jerusalem. Let's take a look.
Reverend Haley Ace has been threatened by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and Hamas agents in London. She's been harassed on the street for wearing a Jewish star necklace, though she is not Jewish, and attacked on social media for standing up for Israel. Despite these threats, Ace, a mother of 6 living in London, arrived in Israel last week to stand in solidarity with the Jewish people.
We cannot let fear hold us back from doing the right thing. Fear cannot be the reason we don't do it, because there is right and there is wrong, and we have to be brave and strong.
Ace is one of London's most well-known Christian activists for Israel. She's the founder of Christian Action Against Anti-Semitism and was named among the 50 Christian allies for Israel last year. Ace arrived in Israel on Thursday to create content aimed at fighting the propaganda war and inspiring her network of Christians, what she calls the silent majority. She will remain in Israel until the 20th. Her itinerary is packed. It includes visits to war-affected sites, meetings with Israeli political and military leaders, encouraging soldiers on army bases, and exploring the Old City and other Christian sites significant to her faith. On Thursday, Ace spent the day with 9-year-old Ben Carasso, the spokeskid of Israel. Following the events of October 7th, Ben felt compelled to help his country by sharing Israel's story with the world through the eyes of a child. After their visit, Ben and Ace met with ILTV at the King David Hotel in Jerusalem. The young boy described the older advocate as amazing.
A lot of people now really, even if they love Israel, they're afraid to speak out because of those people that want to kill Israel, or anti-Semitism, or pro-Palestinians. And seeing someone like Haley, I don't have words.
Ace explained that her support for Israel is multi-layered.
I truly believe that Israel is fighting for humanity. As a Christian, I read the Torah. I love God, I love the Creator, and I know who the Jewish people are. His everlasting covenant with his precious people is forever, and I stand with the Jewish people entirely. The way that the society treats the Jewish people is very indicative of the health of a nation, and I feel like the Jews are the canary in the coal mine, and right now the canaries are sending out the alert that something is not good going on, and it's only going to get worse for everybody else.
Ace said she wants the people of Israel to feel seen, supported, and deeply valued.
We're with you, we love you, and we know that good will overcome. It's just a matter of time.
A lovely message. And now here's something I can personally recommend. I'd like to invite you to the next ILTV community webinar. This exclusive event gives our paid subscribers a unique opportunity to connect directly with our editor, Steve Leibovitz. You'll have the chance to ask questions about the news and discuss the issues that matter most to you. As you know, Steve is a veteran Israeli journalist who's been covering Israeli news since the days of Prime Minister Begin, and he leads the team that decides what makes it into our news show each and every day. So don't miss this webinar. It's an event you'll definitely want to be a part of. And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Mostly clear skies are expected tonight around the country, with temperatures reaching lows of around 9 degrees Celsius or 49 degrees Fahrenheit. Tomorrow, we should be seeing partly cloudy skies and temperatures at highs of 21 degrees Celsius or 71 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, iltv.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Ladar Gravelazi. Be well, stay safe, and thank you so much for watching.